In those famous words, it is now post time. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having a great week so far on this Tuesday, January the 16th. Jason Blewett, of course, joining you from, I guess, somewhat overcast, partly cloudy Fort Lauderdale on this January 16th. Just looking at my calendar, and I'm excited again. I mean, the reason we are here is because of our latest edition of Tuesdays at 2, where we'll have just a wonderful, wonderful person and and gentleman, and that's understated in Dr. Barry Eisaman. He's going to join us. It'll be a maiden breaker actually for Dr. Eisaman. He has yet to do a Tuesdays at 2. So that's why we're on Zoom right now, and why we've got the record button going. But I was just thinking, looking at the week ahead for me regarding work and horses that we've got racing across the country over the next few days. I mean, it's already the middle of January. I mean, time is just flying by. But morale within the West Point team is super high. We're coming in off a record-setting 2023 with 88 wins. You know, it was like, what's the encore going to be post-flight line? Well, we won nearly 90 races from coast to coast, and it was a wonderful 2023. We've got a lot of new people, I'm sure, that are on the call with us right now, on Zoom with us right now. And without further ado, actually, I am going to be very happy to welcome Dr. Barry Eisaman with us. Doc, are you on the line?
I think I am. I was muted for a while, but Jeff solved that. So if you can hear me, I'm good.
Yeah, no, we can hear you crystal clear. You know, I love listening to your stories. I mean, you've got decades worth of experience and knowledge in various facets of this wonderful thoroughbred racing industry, but you're also a pretty modest guy. So I promise I'll let you speak, Doc, but for all of our partners, whether they're new or older partners, I'd love to go through sort of your resume, and I'll give a little bit of a background. Dr. Eisaman and his wife, Cherie, operate out of a 420-acre training center. It's just outside Ocala in Williston, Florida. This is his first, as I stated a few moments ago. This is the first time starter on Tuesdays at 2. And as we go into Dr. Eisaman's history, grew up in Pennsylvania. He's been around horses his entire life. His dad boarded and trained. He went through vet school at the esteemed New Bolton Center at the University of Pennsylvania and started out as a practicing veterinarian on the racetrack in South Florida. At a time, you would have had 3 active tracks down here between Gulfstream, Hialeah Park, and of course Calder Racecourse. So in the 1980s, the Eisaman shifted to the Ocala area and opened up a full-service farm that year. And that farm has absolutely excelled in developing young horses for various owners, and also has been a top-flight consigner at the 2-year-old sales. We would be here, Doc, until next week if I mentioned every top stakes winner and top horse that has gone through your program. So we're just going to skim the surface to an extent, but the alumni is really impressive. You've got a couple of Kentucky Oaks winners in Catherine Sophia and Plum Pretty, a Kentucky Derby and Preakness winner, and I'll have another who, in my esteemed opinion, probably would have won the Triple Crown that year had he raced in the Belmont. We also got a Belmont winner in Ruler on Ice, and champions, Eclipse Award champions, Vequist, Uni, and Dre Fong, who was a monster sprinter out west. Dr. Eisaman, we've got a number of new people on this call. So, you know, off the bat, we'll go through all the horses that you currently have in your care, whether they're older horses that are getting a little bit of a layup and some R&R for Shug McGahee, or the many newly turned 2-year-olds in your care. But I'm wondering, Doc, you know, as far as like a summation with the steps and the process of building up a young horse from the time they arrive on the farm, say last fall, through now, I mean, what's the process like from last fall through pretty much mid-January with the yearlings turned 2-year-olds at your place?
Jason, that introduction makes me sound like I've got to be at least 95 years old with all that stuff that you listed there.
Well, you look good. You look good for 105. So we're ahead of the game. No, I mean, look,
Well,
we've sat on your porch and you've told me, one story after another, and I can't get enough of them, but I'm glad you like the intro. But in terms of the process between last fall and now, what's it been like?
well, whenever the yearlings come into us, which would be September, well, some come in August from the Saratoga sale, others in September from the Keeneland sale, or October from Fasig-Tipton. But when they arrive at our campus, they're, for the most part, they're used to being led, groomed, bathed, especially if they've been through a yearling sale and they've had the excitement of being shown to buyers at the sale. So they're smart in those areas, but none of them have ever had a bit in their mouth or saddle on their back or a rider or weight or anything on them. So we're basically starting from scratch. And horses, young horses learn by repetition. And what we try to do is we'll teach them these things a little bit at a time. If a horse is of normal personality and learns at a normal rate, they'll go from arrival to being on our racetrack, jogging and training lightly with another baby in a month or 5 weeks, something like that. They'll first start like this, usually the second day after their arrival or so. And I like to get started with them soon after their arrival because they're kind of a little bit hungover or jet lag or tired from their trip and their excitement. And that gives us a bit of an advantage to begin to mold them when they're not like fire breathing dragons and feeling so good all they want to do is play. So in the early stages, it'll start with, like, the first stage is putting a bit in their mouth and then turning them in their stall, circle left, circle right. And then each day a little bit new is added. So you'll start with the bridle and the bit. Maybe the next day the saddle will go on and the girth tighten just gently. Turn in the stall, turn left, turn right. Then the rider will get on his belly, his or her belly, straddling across the horse. So the baby horse then feels the weight of a person on their back. When they're bellied, then again, turn left, turn right, when they've mastered that. And each horse is a little different in how fast they learn things. And we go from step to step just based on how that young horse is doing. That it's not like you've got to do this today. It's we do what you're going to learn today, and we won't push you, and we'll go on to the next step when you're ready. So after the bellying and turning in the stall, the next step will be the rider putting their leg over, like you would see a rider at the races, and sitting on top of the horse. Again, turning left, turning right in the stall. When they've mastered that, they'll come out into the shed row of the barn, which is like an alleyway that goes entirely around the barn, but is enclosed with an outer rail. And they'll go out into this shed row, usually in groups of 2 or 3, and follow each other going around the barn that way, beginning to learn turn right, turn left, stop, go, those kind of basic things. Whenever they master that, they go out into a structure. It's called a round pen, which is a large round thing with a pretty high wall. When they go into the round pen, then the rider can jog them to the left, jog them to the right, again, working on the steering wheel and the stopping. And they may do that for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. When they've mastered that, they'll go into a paddock. And in the paddock's a larger, less confined area than the round pen. And they'll do figure eights, 2 or 3, head to tail. And the figure eights are just a continuation of learning start, stop, turn right, turn left. So after all of that, then they're going to make their way to the racetrack in pairs. And they'll come on the track, enter the track, and at first you're going to go about a half a mile or three-quarters of a mile, just jogging and seeing things and, observing stuff and not being afraid, getting more confidence, and being able to go around there and not be afraid of their buddy or their partner and go in a relatively straight line. And then that's repeated, every day until they master that one. Next step would be going on the track and turning the opposite direction of the traffic, going, down the wrong way down a highway. And that is done so that the young horse can see other horses passing them going the other direction. Most horses, they don't really mind that at all, but maybe 10% or so think it's the end of the world. And in the wild, if trouble's surfacing, horses are running the same direction away from the trouble. They're not going to be going head on into anything. So we make sure that they learn that head on traffic, if they have to see it in the mornings at Saratoga or Belmont, that they've seen it before and they're not scared. And then from that point, it's a matter of gradually increasing the length of their gallop. So when we get out of January, they've all done all those little peewee steps. All of the horses are going to the track and galloping, a mile and a quarter to a mile and a half a day, and spending some time at the starting gate and getting to learn not to be afraid of that too. So at this point, when we get to the stage of going over each individual horse, is going to be rather boring, because this load is a very good load of horses. And, with a few little minor exceptions, they're all doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing at this point in their life. And they're doing it well. The team that helps to select these horses is experienced and has a lot of varied opinions on things. And when a young horse passes the inspection of the different, things that go into buying a horse, in West Point's world, it's a pretty darn good young horse. And so that's what we have here, a lot of bright kids, and, they're doing quite well right now.
Well, that's a beautiful, thorough answer. And I'm glad you feel like you're, maybe the professor in advanced class in terms of the kind of students that you currently have. I'm curious, Doc, before we run through the horses, at what point do the horses at your training facility start to maybe separate themselves just in terms of ability? Is that something that will happen before they leave for their respective trainers? Will you get a better idea who stands where in terms of talent?
Yeah, it begins to happen, right from the beginning. There's certainly at this stage, there are plenty of things that a young horse could be doing wrong. They could be afraid of a squirrel that's 30 yards away from them. They could gallop on the racetrack and move like a desert camel. They could be always getting every little nick and bump. One little cold goes through, they get it. So this group of West Point horses has not accumulated any of those demerits that I could have seen by now, which, again, it's a good load so far. So from here until they leave to go to their respective trainers, we'll begin to learn a lot more, because soon they're going to be able to start to increase the pace at which they're training. It's baby breezes, so they'll start 1/8 of a mile, perhaps in 14 seconds or so with a buddy. Do it well, do it straight, don't be afraid. And each week or 10 days, a little more, speed is added and a little more distance is added. So by the time they're ready to leave here, they're working 3/8 mile or so, and going to the gate and doing things like that, and being all ready for the next level of the trainer to take over.
Excellent. Now, I know, Doc, you've had a long-standing friendship, because I even asked you, how long have you been, well, friends? I mean, colleagues and friends with Hall of Fame trainer Shug McGahee, and Shug, when our horses not only the young horses out of the sales, but when our active horses need a little bit of a break, they tend to spend some time at your facility right outside Ocala, and you've got a few horses up there. I'd love to get your thoughts on the current status of Battle of Normandy, who I will add, Doc. I talked to Shug more than any other trainer within the West Point ranks and roster, and Shug even relayed to me how just thrilled you are with how good or maybe even great that Battle of Normandy currently looks.
Yeah, he's doing extremely well. He came into us, it was late December, probably. I'm just going from memory on that one. But he had, had some freshening in Kentucky, came here to go back into training and get ready to go to Shug. He's doing very, very well. I would guesstimate that he probably will only be here another couple of weeks until he goes into Shug, most likely at Payson Park.
Great. And is that a similar situation to Coastalong? I know Coastalong maybe got in, or they might have arrived together now, come to think of it, or within a couple of weeks of one another. How's Coastalong doing as he comes off a case of bone bruising?
He's doing extremely well also, and he actually has a bus ride scheduled to go to Shug. He'll leave here Thursday morning and be at Payson Park by early afternoon on Thursday, but he's doing superbly.
Great. I'm excited to see him run. Dripping Gold, who's, believe it or not, now a 5-year-old and one of my personal favorites. He had a short break, just a little wear and tear. What's the story with him?
His rest was mainly in need of his ankles having a little breather. He carries some minor filling in his ankles or swelling in his ankles, and that's improved a lot. We have him slated to start back under tack jogging on 2/1. So at the moment, he's turned out just enjoying his life in Florida sunshine.
Perfect. And then Wayhill Road, Shug had mentioned after Cugino ran second for us, Shug had mentioned to me at Gulfstream on Saturday, this horse has already actually departed, correct? And is that Payson?
That is correct. He's at Payson Park.
Beautiful. I mean, the answer probably speaks for itself. Where was your mindset? What kind of shape was he in when he got on the van leaving Ocala?
I thought he did particularly well with his short vacation. Some horses love vacations. They go out in their paddock, they relax, eat some grass, lay in the sun, eat some dinner, gain some weight, and he did all those things. And rather quickly, you could see, his general body score just improving, his hair coat, everything. So I thought he looked extremely well when he moved back into Payson.
Perfect. Couple for Cherie we'll give a quick mention to, including Ghost Rider, who's a Ghost Zapper filly. She's had some stops and starts, and our beloved Vava, who's a Grade 2 winner and hopefully a Grade 1 caliber horse this year. How are both of those fillies doing for Cherie, Doc?
Well, True Elegance struggled during her 2-year-old year, and it was not that she broke anything or had any one bad injury. It just seemed like there was always something new that was bugging her. So we decided just to let Mother Nature work her wonders on that filly, and we turned her out for 3 or 4 months in the latter part of 2023. She's now back under tack and just started not long ago. So far, she looks good, very good. And Vava, you said Grade 1 hopes on. The hopes are Breeders' Cup hopes, right?
Sure. No, and a champion sprinting filly for 2024. And given how good she was last season at 3, there's no reason in my mind to think, and she's a gun runner as well. So perhaps she raises her game to another level or two. We could have a gigantic year for her. I mean, what's it like having her up there?
Well, she started her life here, whenever she was an unbroken baby, like all these other ones we're talking about under West Point's umbrella. So she's been here a couple times in her life. My instructions or goal right now is she's to be here about a month, and she's to continue in light training and get turned out, get some sun, relax, return to Cherie, about a month from when she shipped in. Seems like she's been here 10 days or so. But so far, she's doing really well. She's going well. She's eating well. She looks well. And, there's, I guess, disappointing news comes along rather often in our sport with this injury or that injury. And you need to gravitate to things you can really look forward to and be excited about. And this filly is one that the team that owns her can be excited about, because she has shown her uncanny desire to win races. When she won at Keeneland, it was a sight to behold. I mean, she's the real deal. And so looking forward to this year with her is something that everybody can dream about.
Well said. Well said. Absolutely. That Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint at Del Mar, and Cherie has been open about wanting to essentially emulate Goodnight Olive's championship campaign, bringing, of course, Baba back this April at Keeneland, and we'll move on from there. But no, she is a good one for sure. Speaking of Cherie, we'll get on to the yearlings turn 2-year-olds. And as you said, Doc, earlier in the call, it might not get boring, but most of these horses have been training. They're doing well. It is still, and I do want to emphasize, it's only the middle of January, so it's still extremely early, all things considered, in the process of this. But we'll get on to the 2-year-olds, including the authentic Danu colt, who we purchased in Keeneland September. What's going on with him?
I gave him a little elective vacation. It was mostly because of my conservative nature. So he took most of the month of December off with some minor swelling in a back ankle. That seems to be resolved, and he has resumed training on 1/1. And everything seems well with him. He's a nice, big, strong horse and a good mover.
We've got the Candy Ride Magic Star colt going to Steve Asmussen. He needed a little bit of a break after the Keeneland September sale. What's the scoop?
He, by request of the team on purchasing day and evaluating all his different veterinary reports, they thought that he needed maybe 2 months of just relaxation after the sale before beginning to break him, which we did. And so he began his kindergarten lessons around the 20th of November or so. He's marched on through those different calisthenics to the point he's on the track. He's backing up on the oncoming traffic. He's a big, strong, good-looking horse, and everything is well.
Happy to hear it. Beautiful. Loved him as a yearling. Statesman, he's a Constitution colt, and Constitution has been absolutely white hot. He's got winners and high quality winners seemingly every single weekend. I'm reading on Thoroughbred Daily News or Blood Horse. He's the Constitution out of Icon Project, purchased this past summer in Saratoga at the phasing sale up there, going to Shug McGahee. How is Icon Project doing, Doc?
Again, my reports are going to be rather boring to listen to because so many of them are going so well. And, this is a good-looking colt, good bone, good size, good mover, good and healthy. And I think I had mentioned to you, Jason, on one of your visits that Icon Project, the mare herself, had lived with us, during her racing career also. So he's good. He's doing real good.
Perfect. And boring is fine. I was speaking to a partner, or spoke to a partner earlier today, just recapping a horse we currently have with Dale Romans named Stretch Ride, who had his first time breeze of the season this past Saturday, just an easy half mile at Gulfstream. And I said, outside of him getting back on the work tab, it's kind of no news is good news. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we like that. And I'm happy to hear you, Doc, repeat this horse's training and doing great. Nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, it's music to my ears, and that includes, of course, Kyla's Cause, who's a New York bred filly by Daredevil out of Maximova, purchased her at the state bred sale in Saratoga. She will head, Doc, to trainer Tom Morley.
I think this is a beautiful filly. She's got a body type that just looks fast, looks like speed. The New York bred portion of her portfolio has to help her. I imagine we've broken 7, 8, 9 Daredevils over the years. Easily, this is the best looking one that I've been associated with. So I would be optimistic that she will be able to play, and barring any injuries or setbacks, I think she'll be playing at Saratoga.
Lovely. That is great. The newly named Superpower. I'm not sure who named Superpower, but I will say here on the record, I love it. He's the Frosted out of Super Espresso. He's out of a Medaglia d'Oro Dam. He's going to Christophe Comant. And beautiful horse, Doc. What's going on with him?
Beautiful horse, good body, very classy, very athletic. All is well.
Great. We'll move on to the gun runner out of Rev D'Amour, who will head out west to John Sadler.
He was one also that recommendation was to give a couple months vacation time before beginning to break. So he started late November with his lessons, learns fast on the track, going well, looking good, smart, afraid of nothing. Gun runner is gun runner. So what an amazing young sire he is. This is a very good young horse.
Perfect. We've got a couple of Into Mischiefs with you, including the one out of Ever So Clever. He's got a big-time full sibling named Ever So Mischievous, also trained by Brad Cox. Is this horse in training right now, Doc?
The Ever So Clever is doing very well. Good, big, Into Mischief looking, Into Mischief's world-class sire, doing great. Everything is very, very good with this horse also. Boring.
All right, good. Well, keep the boring coming, especially as we get on to the next guy who's also by Into Mischief out of Nona Mia, purchased. He was the sales topper from Keeneland in September. Todd Pletcher's going to train him. I've got a framed picture of Outwork, actually, his half brother, right over my left shoulder on my wall here in my home. Fierceness is in the family. How is the big Nona Mia cult doing, Doc?
I think sometimes it's easy to fall into being lured into liking horses that were really, really popular at the sale, because in order for a horse to command the type of sales price that this one did, a lot of really, really good horsemen love this horse. So here, even if I cross off knowing who he was or just to look at him as a horse, he is a beautiful horse. He's one of the top ones on our farm this year, and I look forward with anticipation of good things to come.
Excellent. And we won't miss a beat getting on to Maui Strong, a Kitten's Joy out of Legal Tender, purchased in Saratoga, and our good buddy Dale Romans is going to train Maui Strong, who's out of Legal Tender.
A lot of Kitten's Joys as young horses at this age, you look at them and say, well, Kitten's Joys are mostly brass horses. They're mostly two-turn horses. They develop more into their 3-year-old year. But this Legal Tender colt, he's big, strong, good boned, good minded. He's acting like he will be ready to play in his 2-year-old year for sure, effectively. I think he's a potential Churchill Downs starter or Saratoga. Dale goes up there too, but this is a nice horse.
Beautiful. He's got a very nice half brother named Enlighten, who's trained by Todd Pletcher. We'll move on to the Medaglia d'Oro filly, newly minted as Medaglia, which I like. And I'm a big Medaglia d'Oro guy. I tweeted about him a few days ago saying that I think his racing career, his on-track talents, I don't know, they kind of get a little lost. He's been a top sire for a long time, but I think people forget just how good he was on the racetrack. This filly Medaglia is out of Z Drop. Arnaud Delacour is going to train. How is the Z Drop filly doing, Mr. Eisaman?
Could be the next Rachel Alexandra. I mean, she's looks like a Medaglia d'Oro, big, stretchy body, two-turn action and look, healthy, smart. You know, so she's done it all correctly so far. And when you have that kind of gene pool that you're carrying around with you, anything's possible.
Love hearing the attributes with her, and Arnaud Delacour has just done a phenomenal job with the horses that West Point has sent him. We've got, of course, quite a bit of history with John Sadler and a big string of West Point owned horses out in Southern California with John Sadler. In the spring, later this year, the Not This Time out of Foreigner Fair colt will, of course, head out west. This horse sold for quite a bit of money at the Keeneland September sale. How about, Doc, and you can tell us how the horse is doing, but even, I mean, the impact that a young stallion like Not This Time has had. I mean, an incredible rise to like the real cream of the crop in terms of stallion standing in Kentucky. It's been unbelievable. Don't you agree, watching his progeny?
Yeah, and it seems as each season goes by, they seem to get better and better. And maybe his first crop, when they were first 2-year-olds, I think folks would have looked upon him as a sire of precocious sprinter type 2-year-olds. But he's getting all kinds of route, grass. You know, I think one of his offspring's probably going to be up for grass horse of the year or something. But he's a world-class horse. And this colt, I would rate him as high as I rate horses. I mean, he's right up on the top shelf with many of your others. The top shelf is getting pretty heavy.
That's quite okay. We've got enough support beams for sure, and with a great team. I mean, there's such a, in my mind, just I sleep well at night knowing our horses are at your training facility. I mean, that is the absolute truth. As we move on to the quality road out of March Express, soon to be trained in a few months by Shug McGahee, who had a couple of really nice maiden winners over the weekend at Gulfstream. How's the March Express colt doing?
He's wonderful. You know, Quality Road is a wonderful world-class sire. You know, can get quality, you know, classic distances. And this is a wonderful, wonderful horse. There's probably 10 Quality Roads here on campus this year. And this colt's right up in the upper quarter of those for sure.
Excellent. We don't miss a beat. I mean, going from Medaglia d'Oro, Not This Time, Quality Road, into Mischief. Well, up next, we've got a Tap It out of Gamble's Ghost, and another headed out west to John Sadler. What's the update on January 16th with him?
You know, I think when you see Tap It in the pedigree, you have to respect that. I mean, that's world-class sire. Tap It gets brilliance. He can also get a lot of average things, but people are after the brilliance when they're going to the sale and buying them. You know, this one is a bay. You know, many of the Tappets are gray. This one's bay. Good boned, good mind. Some of the weaker Tappets can be nervous or afraid of things quite easily. But this is a very, very good young horse.
Perfect. Obviously, there's history with West Point and Tappet and John Sadler out west. A couple more to get to, including my favorite yearling that the stable purchased in partnership during the Saratoga August sale, the select sale at Phasig last summer upstate. We've got the Twirling Candy out of Rehearsed. Steve Asmussen will train and get us up to speed, Doc, on the Rehearsed colt.
He's a beautiful horse. It's really hard to find fault with or pick him apart. He's got size, he's got balance, he's got bone, and he's got a classy mind, and he just acts like he's in charge of everything all the time. So he's quite good.
Perfect. And then last but not least, we've got the Uncle Mo out of Diva Delight, big time pedigree here naturally with Midnight Bizou in the family. You know I'm an Uncle Mo guy, Doc. What's going on with him?
Well, this is again, it's a very, very good young horse, and I'm excited to be able to look forward the next couple or 3 months as we start to breeze everybody to see who in this very good load of horses rises to the top 3 or 4. But this Uncle Mo is a very, very good prospect, as are many of these, and hopefully, as we move forward, we'll be able to begin to see who we might think is best. But even being in the lower third of this load are very good horses.
What's it like for you? And thank you so much. I mean, just awesome updates, and just love going through the stable, especially when we're all dreaming. We know how tough the game is. It's a brutally tough game, but we all love it so much. Like, if you're not going to dream big, why do this? And I am certainly dreaming big. I'm wondering, Doc, before I open it up for questions, far from your first rodeo, you've been doing this a long time. What's it like, though? I mean, even with all the top horses that have come out of your program, do you still get as excited when you've got, say, you're looking ahead and it's a Saturday in Saratoga, or maybe Del Mar, or even the springtime at Churchill Downs, and you're seeing a first time starter that spent this crucial, such a pivotal time at your place that you prepared? I mean, even now in 2024, what's it like for you in terms of getting ready to watch one that you had such a key hand, and your team had such a key hand in getting saddle broken, prepared for the races?
Well, I think it always has been very enjoyable to watch horses as they leave and go off to the races. And, we're the biggest cheerleaders for all those that come through our campus. So the excitement never gets less as years go by. And it certainly makes for interesting Saturday and Sunday afternoons watching the races, as things are unfolding.
All right. So we'll get to the questions. You can unmute yourself, everybody. Don't be shy. They turned out for you, Mr. Eisaman. We've got over 50 people on the line right now listening in, and thank you again for everybody that is joining us live, or even if you're catching the replay. Our first question is from Bob Kane. Hey, Bob, for Medallia. And she is the Medaglia d'Oro out of Z Drop. When the sales pitch was made way back when, David and Gordo mentioned that she, quote unquote, she had a little bit of this or a little bit of that, something about how she walked or strode, I believe. What is the status of that quote unquote observation? Is it something she has grown out of, or is it still a concern? I think, Doc, Bob is intimating we didn't pay. When you look at the Z Drop Medaglia d'Oro filly's pedigree, we didn't pay an arm and a leg for her. Where does she stand along those lines in terms of confirmation and all that?
I think probably what Bob's referring to would be that as you watch her walk straight to you, she turns in left front somewhat. It's not all that bad. It's still there. When you watch her train and she comes straight to you, there's no wasted action, and she moves just fine. And it's not always the most desirable one at the yearling sales that makes the best runner. Sherry and I bought a Medaglia filly for $85,000 a few years ago at Keeneland, and people at that yearling sale didn't care for her all that much. She ended up being eventually named Wonder Godot, and she was second in the Kentucky Oaks, and she was champion 2 and 3-year-old, I think, in Canada. So you can't always go by thinking that, oh, this horse was cheaper than it should have been. Something's got to be wrong. I think your team helps pick through those kind of things to get runners, because you're looking for Saturday afternoon fun.
Okay, thanks so much, and great answer, and thank you, Bob, for the question. Anybody else? We'll open the lines, and don't be shy. Got a insightful is understated, for sure. an insightful gentleman who's done a lot in this industry and has been around many top horses. You have to hit *6 to unmute, so you can unmute yourselves and have at it here. Oh, another question just came in from Errol Kors. Does Dr. Eisaman have thoughts on getting a horse from a yearling sale versus, say, a 2-year-old in training out of the Ocala sale? I know, Doc, from your consignment business, selling horses, you focus in on the 2-year-old sales in Ocala, but have at it. I mean, yearlings versus, say, a 2-year-old out of one of the spring sales.
I think good horses come from many different backgrounds. And, when you're buying yearlings, you're buying mostly on pedigree, body type, conformation, how they look on a shank, and, how they vet, or, the different reports that one would get from their pre-sale exams. When you get into the 2-year-old marketplace, you get one extra level of look at the horse where you can see how they move on the racetrack, their gait. You can get glimpses of brilliance, if they have a really eye-catching work and an eye-catching gallop out. So there's not any one way to buy horses. Good horses come out of both marketplaces. Many, many, many good horses come out of the 2-year-old marketplace.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm getting text, Doc, about people thinking you're the best first-time starter we've ever had in the history of West Point Thoroughbreds on Tuesdays at 2. And we're not even done yet. So, a great job. People have really enjoyed. And again, *6, I'm sure Dr. Eisaman's rolling his eyes at me as I tell him that. But it's been a ton of fun. Anybody else want to jump on? Yes.
Jason, yes. How you doing? Messick here.
Yep. What's up? What's up, Landshark? How are you, Joe?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I was wanting to ask the doctor if there's a report card when he is done with his breaking and as he turns the horse over to the trainer.
I keep track. I actually, it's a very interesting question. Thank you. But I actually, on my computer system, on my database, I assign a score to each horse, which would be how I like them on a shank, like if I'm looking at them on a shank. And it's a 5-4-3 scale, 5 being high, or ABC if you want. And sometimes there'll be horses that are just even above an A, and they'll be 5+ or an A+. So I do that score on a shank. I do that score also as I like them the way they move under tack and or the way they move breezing. And so my imaginary little score system just helps me sort horses, as to who I seem to like best, for an owner, for, a sire or whatever I'm looking at. But whenever they leave here and go to the racetrack, they can go through all their time here, all their different learning things, all their breezes. They can do wonderfully. They can look like they have immense talent, but the big talent separator is on race day. Some of these young horses can do everything perfectly for me. They can do everything perfectly for Shug. Jason can get glowing reports back from Shug on how wonderful a young horse is doing. But whenever they go in that gate of 10 or 12 horses, and it's the first time starter, if the field breaks and, they get slammed from both sides, some young horses say, well, I didn't really sign on for this. I'm not up for this. Whereas others take that as a challenge and they dig in and fight and show that they have the true grit needed for the sport. So that final test is where, even if we have straight A's on our report card, or if you are a highly sought after Division I quarterback, if you're the greatest quarterback in the state of Florida throwing the ball, that doesn't mean when you hit college level and you get slammed by 2 or 3 sizable, mean linemen, you might not think that you want to be a quarterback much longer. And it's the same thing with young horses.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the question, Joe. And great Great response there, Dr. Eisaman. Bill Flynn, regarding the Constitution Icon project, do you have, Doc, any opinion if he'll be early or need more time as a 2-year-old? I mean, generally speaking, Shug isn't really a 2-year-old guy, but what do you is it too early to answer that? What do you think?
Well, I think knowing Icon Project herself and constitutions in general and the way this colt looks, he's probably going to be a better 2-turn horse than Sprinter. But he's sound. He's going well. His mind is good. Even though he may be better going long, doesn't mean he can't still make it to the races in the summer and be quite competitive. So I think he's better long. I think he's a great prospect, and I expect without injury he'll make it to the races this summer.
Great. I know Shug was happy over the fall to be getting him and the other yearlings at the time. I mean, so much so he was had already done a deep dive in terms of their pedigrees when I had stopped by the barn downstate at Belmont to chat with them. We've got Bernadette Tao out west. Out of curiosity, I looked at off the authentic. So this is the authentic out of Danu, his Keeneland yearling sale video a while back, and I thought he looked a bit like his sire. Would you say that's a fair observation?
Yes, I would say it'd be a very good observation. He does look that way. If I then take this Danu, and I'm not pronouncing that dam's name correctly, I'm sure, but I see a lot more improvement coming over the next few months. Whereas some of these other horses, they look like they could be walking into Churchill Downs day after tomorrow. I can see more growth, more improvement, and more upside in the authentic colt, and he does look like his sire.
Perfect. Hopefully he can run like his sire. He was a top class horse for sure. Anybody else? *6 to unmute. If not, we'll let the good Dr. Eisaman, the great Dr. Eisaman, let him get on his way. Oh, we got Trey Gordon. You raised your hand. Are you there, Trey?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Doc, Trey Gordon, good to hear from you today. You did an excellent job, by the way, and really appreciate your time. And really, this is a compliment to Doc. He is a true gentleman in the business. I've had the opportunity to be at his place a couple of times, sitting on the back porch, having coffee, watching the horses train as the fog's lifting. And the comment is, if you're a new partner or you've never been to Doc's place, it is a must-see, must opportunity in our business. And that is a compliment to Doc himself. So I would encourage everybody to do that if you have not done that.
Okay, thanks very much, Trey.
Yeah, he's him and his team, integral part of what we do here at West Point Thoroughbreds. And I can't be any more serious than just stating that I sleep well at night, knowing where our horses are this time of the year. And that goes for Dr. Eisaman, it goes for Eddie Woods, and just the various people that we use in Ocala. And of course, Eisaman Equine, very much a key part of the team. And I think that is about it for questions. Dr. Eisaman, can't thank you enough for jumping on with us. You hit it out of the park, my friend. This was like a 115 buyer speed figure, while pretty much wrapped up there in the last 16th of a mile. Again, Doc, we love having you a part of the team here at West Point Thoroughbreds, and here's to a big 2024 and beyond, my friend.
Well, thanks very much, Jason. And if you want to stop by the next 2 or 3 days, it's going to be 30 degrees here in Ocala. So you don't usually show up on these 30-degree mornings. It's more the moderate temperature.
Yeah, I'm a Long Island kid originally, but I'm now a Florida boy. So and not that anybody would ever confuse me with tough, but yeah, anything like sub 70 is a little too chilly for my take these days. But you will see me. I plan on getting up there first week of February. I will definitely reach out, and of course, not only getting up there to hang out with the great Dr. Eisaman, I'll get some updated footage of our many horses currently in his care. So Thanks again, Doc. You stay warm over the next few days, the next few mornings in Ocala, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, thank you, Jason. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.